So, good day everyone. Today we will discuss Section 2, Language Choice in Multilingual Communities, based on Janet Holmes' book, An Introduction to Social Linguistics, 4th edition. Also, this chapter explores how people in multilingual societies choose which language to use in different situations and why these choices matter in understanding social relationships. Before we proceed to our discussion, I am Marian Felizarta, and I will be your presenter for today's discussion. Okay, this chapter focuses on language choice in multilingual communities, social factors affecting code choice, diglossia with and without bilingualism, polyglossia, changes in diglossia, code switching and code mixing, switching for affective functions, metaphorical switching, lexical borrowing, and linguistic constraints and attitudes. So language serves as a powerful social tool that reflects identity, cultural affiliation, and social norms. In multilingual communities, language choice is not random. It is systematically influenced by social, cultural, and contextual factors. According to Janet Holmes, 2013 provides a comprehensive discussion of how individuals and groups choose among multiple languages or varieties in specific situations. So this will examine key concepts related to language choice, including linguistic repertoire, domains of language use, diglossia, polyglossia, code switching, and attitude toward language alternation. Understanding these phenomena is essential for social linguists, educators, and policymakers in designing language policies and promoting effective communication in multilingual societies. So for language choice in multilingual communities, it is characterized by the coexistence of two or more languages within the same society. So speakers in these communities constantly make decisions about which language or variety to use depending on the setting, participants, and purpose of interaction. So like for example in the Philippines. So English is commonly used in academic and formal domains. Filipino functions as the national language, and various regional dialects serves as the medium for home and community interaction. These choices highlight the social nature of language use, where selection is guided by norms, expectation, and relationships rather than linguistic competence alone. Now, moving on, what is your linguistic repertoire? Anyone? Okay, so language repertoire, it is the range of languages and varieties a person can use. This includes standards and non-standard forms, dialects, and socialects. So like for example, English, Filipino, and local dialect. So linguistic repertoire, a person's linguistic repertoire refers to the full range of languages, dialects, and registers they can use. So this repertoire includes both standard and non-standard forms, as well as specialized language for different domains such as religion, work, or leisure. For example, an educated Filipino might use English for academic writing, so Filipino for national discourse, and regional dialects such as Ilocano or Cebuano for home conversation. So the concept of linguistic repertoire underscores the flexibility and adaptability of multilingual speakers. So I have here an example one. Kalala is 16 years old. He lives in Bukavu, an African city in the east of Democratic Republic of the Congo Zaire, with a population of about 240,000. It is a multicultural, multilingual city with more people coming and going for work and business reasons than people who live there permanently. So over 40 groups speaking different languages can be found in the city. Kalala, like many of his friends, is unemployed. He spends his days roaming the streets, stopping off periodically or at regular meeting places in the market, place, in the park, or at a friend's place. During a normal day, he uses at least 3 different varieties or codes and sometimes more. So, for Kalala's situation, it exemplifies Janet's home concept of language choice in multilingual communities. So, according to Holmes, language selection depends on factors such as participants, setting, and topic, which factors such as which code or variety is used in a given interaction. So in Bakubo, a city with over 40 language groups, Kalala navigates this linguistic diversity by employing at least 3 different codes daily. So this demonstrates code switching, which Holmes described as the strategic use of different languages or varieties within or across conversation. For Kalala, using different codes helped him signal solidarity, negotiate identity, and adapt to different social networks, especially since he moves between normal, informal meeting spots like market, parks, and friends' homes. And then his linguistic flexibility reflects the dynamic nature of multilingualism, where language is not only a tool for communication but also a marker of social relationship and belonging. Holmes' theory of domains and social dimensions, status, formality, and solidarity and function is evident here, as Kalala choice of language shifts according to who he is talking and to who he is talking and why. The next, we have the domains of language use. Domains of language use. Holmes identifies domains as typical associations between certain social situations and specific language choices. So common domains include family, friendship, education, religion, and government. So each domain tends to have a preferred language or variety, like for example in family domain. So local language or dialect, like for example Cebuano at home. Also, we have education domain. It uses official or national language, like for example English in school. Then we also have religious domain. So sacred or formal language, example Latin or Arabic in liturgy. Then the language choice within domains reinforces cultural expectation and social identity. So I have here an example. Table 2.2, domains of language use. We have family, friendship, religion, education, and employment. And for the family, the address is the parent, and then the setting is home, and then the topic is planning a family party. Then for the friendship, we have friends, and then the setting beach, and then the topic how to play beach tennis. Then we also have the religion. We have the press, and it happened in the church, and then the choosing the Sunday liturgy. Then we also have the education. The teacher is the addressee, and then the setting is the school, and then the topic is solving a math problem. And lastly, we have the employment, which is the addressee is the employer, and then the setting is the workplace, and the topic is applying for a promotion. So the table of domains of language use illustrates how language choice is influenced by social context. So Janet Holmes emphasizes that domains group together, typically interaction involving specific participants, setting, and topics, leading to predictable language varieties. For example, in the family domain, speakers often use an informal or local language to express intimacy and solidarity, while in the friendship domain, casual language or slang is common among peers, and then conversely, religious contexts typically require a formal or sacred variety, reflecting respect and tradition. So in education, the official or standard language is used for clarity and authority. So while in employment, a formal and professional code is preferred to maintain workplace norms. So this pattern demonstrates Holmes' theory that language choice is not random but systematically linked to social dimensions such as status, solidarity, formality, and function. Then moving on to the other social factors affecting code choice. We have the social distance, status, formality, and function. So beyond the participants and settings, other social variables influence language choice. For the status, you have speakers often choose high prestige language to display authority or competence. So like for example, doctor to patient. Then we also have social distance. Greater social distance promotes more formal language use. Like for example, strangers versus friend. And then we also have formality or function cultural norms. Some communities expect code switching as a marker of bilingual identity. Then we also have solidarity and intimacy. So close relationship encourages the use of shared local codes. So models can usefully go beyond the social factors summarized in the domain concept to take account of social dimension such as social distance or stranger versus friend, then relative status or rule, the doctor to patient, and then degrees of formality, formal wedding ceremony versus lunchtime chat. Then we also have the function or goal of the interaction, getting a bargain, and then nevertheless, because they are concerned to capture broad generalization, there are obvious limits to the useful of such models in describing the complexities of language choice, interactions where people switch code. Next, we have diglossia. Diglossia is a characteristic of speech communities rather than individuals. They have two variety, which is the H variety or the high prestige or formal or education media. Then for low variety, we have the low prestige or the informal. It can be used in the home or conversation. Then diglossia refers to the stable consistence of two varieties of a language, each with distinct functions. So, according to Charles Ferguson, describe the glossic situation where a high variety is used for formal domains. And then, like for example, no, the education, media, and literature, while low variety serves informal everyday functions. So example includes classical Arabic or H versus colloquial dialects or L in the Arab world, and standard German H versus Swiss German L in Switzerland. So diglossia illustrates the functional compartmentalization of language varieties in society. Okay, next, diglossia with and without bilingualism. Ferguson concept originally applied with two varieties of the same language, but Joshua Fishman expanded it to include bilingual contexts. So with bilingualism, different languages occupy H and L rules such as Spanish, which is the high, and then Guarani, L in the Paraguay. Without bilingualism, two varieties of the same language as formal Arabic and colloquial Arabic. So these distinctions highlights the flexibility of diglossia as a sociolinguistic phenomenon. Okay, so I have here an example, table 2.4, relationship between diglossia and bilingualism. So as you can see, first we have the both diglossia and bilingualism. Then second, we have bilingualism without diglossia. Then third, diglossia without bilingualism. And lastly, we have neither diglossia nor bilingualism. So, table 2.4 states the possible relationship between diglossia and bilingualism in multilingual communities. In some cases, both diglossia and bilingualism coexist, as in Switzerland, where speakers use distinct language for specific domain, reflecting functional separation. So in contrast, bilingualism without diglossia occurs when individuals use multiple languages interchangeably without fixed rules, such as in many immigrant communities. Conversely, diglossia without bilingualism arises in societies like Arabic-speaking countries, where classical Arabic and local dialects have clear functional roles, yet most speakers are not fully proficient in both. Finally, communities with neither diglossia nor bilingualism are typically monolingual, using a single language across all domains. So these frameworks emphasizes how language choose is shaped by social, cultural, and functional factors rather than mere linguistic competence. Next, we have polyglossia. Polyglossia occurs when more than two languages or varieties are used in a community, often a hierarchical structure. So it occurs when more than two languages or varieties are used in a community, often in a hierarchical structure. For example, in India, it exemplifies polyglossia, with English as function in education and governance, while Hindi as the national language and regional languages dominating local communication. Such complex systems illustrate the adaptive nature of language in society, stratified communities. So also I have here an example, table 2.5, polyglossia in Singapore. So the high variety for Mandarin and Singapore English formal variety, and then low variety, which is the Cantonese Hokkien and Singapore English informal variety. So table 2.5 illustrates that concept of polyglossia, where more than two language varieties coexist within the same community and are used for different functions. In Singapore, there is a clear hierarchical distribution of language use across formal and informal domains. So Mandarin, the formal variety of Singapore English, serves as high varieties, typically used in formal settings such as education, government, and business. On the other hand, Cantonese, Hokkien, and the informal variety of Singapore English function as low varieties, often used in casual conversations, family interactions, and community settings. So this linguistic arrangement demonstrates how language choice is influenced by social context, cultural identity, and functional rules, reinforcing Janet Holmes' idea that multilingual communities strategically allocate language to maintain communication and cultural balance. Then we also have changes in a diglossia situation. So diglossic arrangements are dynamic. Economic, political, and cultural changes can alter the distribution of functions between H and L varieties. So like for example, the rise of mass media has elevated the status of certain vernaculars, while globalization has introduced English into domains traditionally reserved for local languages. Over time, these shifts may lead to language convergence, shift, or even the loss of one variety. So I have here an example. The following words provide a nice illustration of this relationship. So from English word down to French, like for example, ox or beef, that's boeuf in French. And then we also have sheep, that's mouton, and then calf or the beef, the pig or the pork. So the example of English and French lexical differences such as ox to beef, sheep to mutton, calf to veal, and pig to pork provides a clear illustrations of how diglossia can shape a language over time. Following the Norman conquest of 1066, French became the high variety used by the ruling elite for administration, law for the administration, low and aristocratic dining, while English functioned as the low variety, used by the commoners in everyday life. So these social stratification influenced vocabulary. English words were retained for from animals in daily rural life, whereas French words were adapted for meat served in formal dining contexts. So this situation reflects functional differentiation, where language choice is determined by domain and social setting and highlights the role of language and power in linguistic change. Even after French ceased to be the dominant language, these lexical distinctions persisted, demonstrating that historical diglossia can leave long-lasting imprints on a language. Then moving on to the code switching or code mixing. So for code switching, it refers to alternating between language or varieties across sentences, while code mixing occurs when elements from different languages appear within a single sentence. So these practices are widespread in multilingual societies and serve specific communicative purposes, like for example in code switching. So an example for this, I will go to the store pero wala akong pera. Another example for code mixing, nag-drive ako papunta sa mall. So that is an example of code switching. So another example I have here from Maori and translate into English. So according to Sarah, I think everyone's here except Mary. And then for John, she said she might be a bit late, but actually it's that her arriving now. And then Sarah, you're right. So it translates into Maori language. So this conversation illustrates code switching in a bilingual community where speakers alternate between English and Maori to achieve both social and communicative goals. So the interaction begins in English for general communication, but Sarah switches to Maori when greeting Mary, using phrases like kia ora or hi in English, and Harry Mai come in English, which serves as markers of solidarity and cultural identity. Mary responds in Maori as well, signaling reciprocal language choice to affirm group membership and cultural connection. According to Janet Holmes' sociolinguistic framework, this pattern demonstrates that language choice is not a random, but it is influenced by social relationship, identity, and context. Maori here performs an effective function, strengthening interpersonal bond, while English serves as information function, maintaining clarity for the rest of the group. This example highlights how bilingual speakers strategically switch code to balance identity expression and effective communication. Then next we have switching for affective function. It expresses emotions, intimacy, and solidarity. Switching to mother tongue for emphasis, like for example, English to Filipino in order to comfort or humor. So speakers often switch codes to express emotions, intimacy, or solidarity. For example, someone might switch from English to a mother tongue to express affection or comfort. So this highlights the effective role of language choice in maintaining social relationships. So I have here an example. Polly is a young British black woman. She speaks standard English with a West Midland accent, as well as patois, a variety of Jamaican creole, learned from her parents. On one occasion, a school teacher annoyed her intensely by criticizing a story Polly had written about British West Indians. In particular, he corrected the use of patois by one of her characters, something he knew nothing about. Her response was to abuse him in patois, swearing at him only just below her breath. The effect was electrifying. He seemed terrified. He threatened to send her to the headmaster, but in fact he didn't, and she noted with satisfaction that he left her alone after that. So Polly's situation illustrates the power of good choice as a sociolinguistic tool for asserting identity and resisting authority by switching from standard English to Jamaican patois. Polly exercises linguistic agency in a context of power imbalance. Her use of that word was intentional and symbolic. It signaled her cultural identity, expressed solidarity with her heritage, and served an effective function of expressing anger. From Janet Holmes' perspective, this case demonstrates how language choice is strongly tied to social meaning, status, and identity construction. While standard English index neutrality and conformity in a formal school setting, others index resistance and cultural pride, effectively unsettling the teacher who lacked competence in that code. This episode reinforces the multilingual teachers' code switching strategy for negotiating power, challenging authority, and marking boundaries in interaction. Then we also have metaphorical switching. So for metaphorical switching, switch reflects topic or tone change. So like for example, in business talk in English or casual talk in local language. So metaphorical switching occurs when speaker change codes to reflect a shift in topic or social meaning, not just situational context. So like for example, a business meeting in English, then we switch to a local language when participants share a joke or personal anecdote. Then I also have here an example. So, at a village meeting among the Buang people in PNG, Mr. Rupa, the main village entrepreneur and big man, is trying to persuade people who have put money into a village store to live there. This is a section from his skillful speech. And then, it translates into another language. So, for this example, it demonstrates good mixing is a persuasive strategy in a multilingual community. So, Mr. Rupa alternates between Tok Pisin o a lingua franca in Papua New Guinea and Buang, the local language, skillfully combining them to achieve clarity, authority, and solidarity. So, according to Janet Holmes' sociolinguistic framework, such good choices are influenced by social rules, audience, and communicative goals. Tok Pisin is associated with modernity and business, giving his speech an authoritative tone, while Buang indexes local identity and shared cultural values, reinforcing trust and unity among the villagers. By blending these goods, Mr. Rupa not only explains complex financial arrangements but also ensures inclusivity, showing that language choice are a source for negotiation and persuasion in in multilingual settings. This case illustrates how code mixing can enhance communicative effectiveness by aligning both informational and affective functions. Then moving on, we have the lexical borrowing. So, borrowing words or phrases from another language and then also integrated into grammar or borrowing language. Like for example, the jeans, computer, and mall in Filipino. So lexical borrowing involves the adaptations of words from one language into another, often to fill lexical gaps or reflect cultural prestige. So example includes the computer, jeans, and mall in Filipino. But then over time, borrowed words become integrated into the grammar and phonology of the borrowing language. Then we also have linguistic constraints. Its switching follows grammatical rules, and then also switches occurs when sentence structures align. So code switching is governed by grammatical constraints rather than random alternation. According to Paplak 1980, he proposed the equivalence constraint, which suggests that switches occur at points where the grammatical structures of both languages are congruent. This explains why some switches sound natural while others do not. Then we also have attitude to code switching. So for the positive, we have identity marker and then bilingual skill. And then for the negative, seen as lack of competence. It influenced by cultural norms and education. So cultural identity attitudes significantly influence code switching behavior. So in some communities, code switching is viewed positively as a sign of bilingual competence and identity, while in others it is stigmatized as linguistic. So language choice in multilingual communities reflects the intricate interplay of linguistic resources, social norms, and cultural identities. Concepts such as diglossia, polyglossia, and code switching illustrate how speakers navigate complex communicative landscape. Far, far from being arbitrary, language choice is a strategic and act shaped by participants, settings, and purpose of interaction. Understanding these dynamics is crucial in an era of increasing linguistic diversity and globalization. So this is how broad the language in multilingual communities, no? Like for example, in our lingua franca, like for example in Bisaya, we are using the word Bisaya, but we are in formal setting, like for example in academic or in a school or in the institution, we are using English as our language of communication. So it serves as a dynamic, or it highlights the importance of using the code switchings in order for us to get to know, or how are we going to use these codes or the words in order for us to communicate with one another. So that ends my presentation. Thank you.